The sun hung lazily over the city of Nkuruma, its golden rays bouncing off glass towers and dusty alleyways alike. At the edge of the marketplace, where the cries of vendors mixed with the smell of roasted maize, a shiny black car slid into view. It was new, sleek, and foreign, a machine that turned heads wherever it went. The driver, Kato, was only 27. Born into wealth and sharpened by ambition, he loved two things more than life itself: money and respect. He had just purchased this car, a symbol of success, and he wanted the entire town to know he had arrived. The people stared as the engine purred and the polished surface reflected the morning light. To Kato, their stares were fuel to his pride. He parked near the busy roadside and stepped out, adjusting his golden wristwatch. His clothes smelled of expensive cologne. His shoes clicked on the pavement. To him, life was about showing strength and dominance. But fate was waiting, disguised in frailty. From the corner of the road came an old man with a cart pulled by a weary donkey. The man's clothes were torn and patched. His cart was stacked with firewood, wobbling as the donkey struggled under the weight. Sweat glistened on the man's wrinkled forehead, but his eyes were calm and kind. As he passed, the donkey startled, jerking sideways. The cart screeched against Kato's car. A sharp scratching noise sliced through the air, tearing across the gleaming paint of the new vehicle. Silence fell. Then Kato's eyes widened with fury. He rushed forward, shoving the old man aside. "Do you know how much this car cost?" Kato roared. "Do you know who I am?" The old man fell to his knees, trembling. "Forgive me, young master," he begged. "It was not my will." The donkey, he lost control. But Kato's pride was greater than his patience. The eyes of the marketplace were watching, and in his mind, forgiveness looked like weakness. "You ruined my car, old fool!" Kato shouted. His fists flew before reason could stop them. Blow after blow rained down upon the old man. He cried out, clutching his ribs, blood at his lip. But his pleas were drowned by Kato's rage. People gasped, women screamed for him to stop, but none dared step between a rich man and his wrath. Finally, Kato shoved the frail body into the dust. The old man coughed weakly, staring at him with eyes not of pain, but of something deeper, something eternal. "Young man," the old man whispered hoarsely, "you will regret this." Kato sneered, brushing dust from his sleeves. "Get this beggar out of my sight," he barked, and climbed back into his car, revving the engine to drown out the old man's words. The crowd murmured as the car disappeared into the city. The donkey brayed mournfully beside its fallen master. Some said they saw the old man's body shimmer before fading into nothing but dust, leaving no trace behind. Others swore the air grew colder where he had lain. That night, Kato laughed with his friends in a high-end bar. He told the story with pride, twisting it into a tale of dominance. They cheered and called him a man of power. But when he returned home to his luxurious apartment, the silence was heavy. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, but the liquid trembled in his hand. In the corner of the room, a shadow seemed to move though no one was there. And then he heard it, the bray of a donkey, inside his living room. Kato spun around, the glass crashing to the floor. Nothing. Only silence. He shook his head, muttering, "I drank too much." But when he passed the mirror, he froze. For behind his reflection stood the old man, his eyes glowing pale, his lips forming a silent curse. Kato screamed. Kato hardly slept that night. Every time his eyelids drooped, he saw the old man's face hovering in the darkness, eyes glowing like fireflies in the black. The braying of a donkey echoed faintly in his ears, sometimes near, sometimes far, like it was circling his apartment. When the morning sun rose, he told himself it was just guilt playing tricks. But Kato did not believe in guilt. He believed in control, in dominance, in crushing anyone who stood in his way. So he forced the memory down and told himself, "It's nothing, just shadows and whiskey." But the spirit had only just begun. 2 days later, Kato drove to a meeting with investors. The glass skyscrapers of Nkuruma glittered ahead as he sped down the highway, his golden wristwatch catching the light. Music boomed from his stereo, but then slowly it warped. The beat stuttered, the singer's voice melted into a low groan. Then came the sound again, The bray of a donkey, long, drawn out, unnatural. Kato slammed the brakes, nearly causing a pileup. Heart pounding, he shut off the music. But in the silence, the bray continued. It was coming from his back seat. He turned and froze. There, sitting where no one should have been, was the old man. His clothes were the same torn rags, his face pale, his eyes hollow. Dust fell from his body like ash. He raised a trembling finger at Kato. "You will regret," the ghost whispered, voice layered like 100 voices speaking at once. Kato screamed, swerved the car, and it crashed into the roadside ditch. When people rushed to help, they found him trembling, alone. The back seat was empty. That evening, desperate and shaken, Kato sought help where most in Nkuruma whispered to go. The witch doctor who lived on the edge of the swamp. The hut was dark, lit only by candles and cowrie shells scattered on the floor. Strange charms hung from the ceiling, dripping with blood from sacrificed chickens. The witch doctor, a tall man with white chalk smeared across his face, stared into the fire as Kato entered. "You should not be here," the witch doctor said before Kato spoke. "The dead walk behind you." Kato's mouth went dry. "You know," the witch doctor nodded slowly, "you beat an old man on the roadside. That was no ordinary man. He belonged neither to the living nor the dead. You struck a spirit wandering in disguise." Kato's knees weakened. "Tell me how to stop him. I'll pay anything." The witch doctor's eyes glowed in the firelight. "Spirits cannot be bribed with money, but they can be appeased. You must offer blood." He brought out a goat, its legs bound. "Spill this blood, and perhaps the spirit will leave you." Kato grabbed the knife with trembling hands and did as instructed. The goat's scream filled the hut as blood splashed into a carved wooden bowl. The witch doctor chanted in an ancient tongue, sprinkling the blood onto the fire until smoke filled the hut. "You may have peace for now," the witch doctor declared. But as Kato turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of the goat's body. Its head had turned, and in place of its eyes, he saw the glowing eyes of the old man. The spirit was not gone, it had only grown stronger. That night, Kato locked every door, every window. He left the lights on, clutching a Bible someone had once given him, though he had never opened it before. Midnight came. The city outside grew quiet, and then he heard it again. Clip-clop, clip-clop. The sound of hooves, slow, heavy, coming closer. Kato froze. The sound circled his apartment, dragging like the wheels of a cart. Then, silence. He exhaled, thinking it had passed. But when he looked up, he saw dust pouring from under the door. It seeped into the room, swirling until it formed the shape of the old man. This time the spirit did not whisper. It lunged. Kato was thrown across the room as if struck by an invisible force. His ribs burned, his head smacked against the wall. The ghost's eyes burned into him, and the voice thundered, "You will know suffering as you gave suffering." Kato screamed until his throat went dry. He tried to crawl, but the shadowy figure pressed him down. He felt bones cracking that weren't touched by any hand. Then just as suddenly the spirit vanished, leaving him broken on the floor. By morning, Kato looked into the mirror. His once proud face was swollen with bruises, though no one had touched him. His golden watch had shattered, and in his reflection, the old man still stood behind him. By now, Kato's life was collapsing. His once pristine car remained in the garage, its windows fogged as though something breathed inside. At night, neighbors complained of hearing donkey hooves and groans echoing from his apartment. His business meetings fell apart because he would arrive pale, shaking, speaking nonsense about shadows following him. He could no longer hide it. The haunting was real. A friend, seeing his torment, urged him, "Leave the witch doctors. Only God's house can deliver you." Though Kato had never believed, fear drove him. One Sunday, he walked into the Grand Cathedral in the heart of Nkuruma. Stained glass bathed the floor in colors. The choir sang hymns, their voices rising like light itself. For a moment, Kato felt relief. He pushed through the crowd and collapsed before the altar, shouting, "Father, help me! A spirit is destroying me." The priest, an elderly man with kind eyes, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Son, nothing is stronger than the name of Jesus. Do not fear." The congregation gathered around as the priest began to pray. He sprinkled holy water, raised the Bible, and declared, "Spirit of darkness, leave this man." Kato trembled, sweat soaking his shirt. His body shook violently, as if invisible hands were tearing at him. The crowd gasped as his voice changed. Deep, layered, not his own. "He is mine," the voice thundered. "You cannot save him." The candles flickered. The stained glass cracked. People screamed and fled, while the priest shouted prayers louder. But the spirit laughed, a hollow donkey-like bray. Then, with a burst of wind, Kato was hurled across the church. He landed at the foot of the cross, coughing blood. When he looked up, the spirit's shadow stood nailed beside the crucifix, glaring down at him with glowing eyes. The priest fell to his knees, shaken. This is no ordinary haunting. Son, you struck one who was already dead." Later, in the rectory, the priest explained, "That man you beat, he was no beggar. He died years ago on that very road, crushed by traitors who never stopped to help him. His soul wanders, searching for justice. When you raised your hand against him, you sealed a covenant of torment." Kato's heart nearly stopped. Then what can I do?" The priest hesitated. "No prayer can release you unless you humble yourself. You must seek forgiveness, not from me, not from God alone, but from the dead man himself." "But he's gone," Kato cried. The priest's voice hardened. "Not gone. Waiting." Desperate, Kato went from church to church, each pastor claiming they could deliver him. They prayed, anointed him with oil, shouted, cast out demons, but each time, the spirit returned stronger. In one small Pentecostal chapel, as the preacher laid hands on him, Kato levitated from the floor, his body stiff as stone. His eyes rolled white, and the spirit spoke through him again. "You tried to banish me with fire, but I am the fire. He belongs to me until the debt is paid." The congregation fled, screaming. The preacher collapsed in exhaustion. From that night onward, the haunting became relentless. Shadows crawled across Kato's walls. Every mirror showed the old man standing behind him. Food rotted in his mouth before he could swallow. His bed turned to dust beneath him at midnight. And still, the donkey hooves followed, always circling, always closer. Kato was no longer the proud, wealthy man who had once flaunted his car and gold. He grew thin, wild-eyed, unshaven. His friends abandoned him, whispering that he was cursed. One night, unable to bear it anymore, he staggered back to the very road where it all began. The moon hung full, casting silver light across the dust. And there, standing beside a cart that had no donkey, no wheels, only shadows, was the old man, waiting. Kato fell to his knees, trembling. "Please, please forgive me. I didn't know. I didn't know you were already—" The spirit lifted a hand, silencing him. Its eyes glowed brighter, and the air grew heavy, pressing down on Kato's chest. "You will know forgiveness," the spirit said, "but only after you pay what is owed." And before Kato could ask what that meant, the cart's shadowy wheels began to turn. The haunting was far from over. The night air around Kato grew so heavy that he could hardly breathe. The moonlight dimmed as though swallowed by an unseen cloud, and the shadowy cart groaned forward, pulled by no donkey but driven by a force older than time. The old man, or rather, the spirit wearing his form, fixed Kato with eyes that gleamed like burning coals. "You took my peace," the spirit said, voice echoing like thunder from the earth itself. "Now you must give me yours." Kato pressed his face to the dirt. "I was wrong. Forgive me. I'll do anything. Take my wealth, take my car, but let me live." The spirit tilted its head, lips curling into something between a smile and a snarl. "Your car? Your wealth? Dust? Worthless. What I want is balance." The ground beneath them shuddered, splitting slightly, as though the earth itself listened. The spirit raised a bony hand, and suddenly Kato was no longer kneeling on the roadside. He was inside a vast cavern of shadows. Countless torches lined the walls, but their flames burned black. At the center stood a scale, ancient and rusted. On one side rested the spirit's cracked walking stick. On the other, nothing. "This is the weight of what you did," the spirit intoned. "You raised your hand against the helpless. You shed blood without cause. The scales must be balanced." Kato's heart pounded. How? The spirit's eyes bore into him. A life for a life. Kato stumbled back. No, please, no, I can't. The spirit's shadowy cart rattled forward, wheels screeching like 1,000 screams. Then you will be dragged until eternity, tied to my cart, cursed to wander as I wandered. Kato broke down, tears streaming. Wait, if it's a life you want, let it be mine. But grant me one night to make peace, to tell my mother I'm sorry, to warn others not to walk the path I walked. After that, take me. The cavern fell silent. Even the torches froze, their flames unmoving. The spirit studied him for a long moment. Few beg with truth in their chest, and it said finally, you may have your night, but when the cock crows thrice, I will return. And if you fail to use your breath wisely, the earth itself will deny you rest. With that, the spirit vanished, and Kato found himself once again kneeling on the dusty road, the moon glaring down. He staggered home, shaking, broken, but strangely calm. For the first time in months, the shadows did not follow. The hooves were silent. The car sat still in the garage, no fog on its windows. That night, Kato wrote letters, one to his mother, begging forgiveness for his arrogance, one to his friends, urging them to treat the poor with mercy, and one he left on the hood of his car, reading only, wealth without compassion is a curse heavier than poverty. At dawn, he walked to his mother's house. She embraced him, confused at his tears, but he only whispered, I love you. Pray for me. As the sky brightened, the first cock crowed. At noon, the second. And just before dusk, as the horizon bled orange and red, the third cock crowed, loud and final. Kato stood once again on the roadside where it all began. The shadowy cart appeared, silent this time, waiting. The old man's spirit stepped forward, eyes no longer burning with rage, but glimmering with something like sorrow. You chose truth, the spirit said. Now your debt is paid. Kato nodded, no longer resisting. He stepped toward the cart, placed his hands on it, and whispered, Let my life teach others. The cart groaned, its wheels turning once more. But as it rolled away into the shadows, Kato's body slumped lifeless on the ground. His face, however, bore peace, the peace he had stolen, finally restored. They found him the next morning, lying by the road, his car key clutched in his hand, a faint smile on his lips. His letters spread quickly across the town, stirring whispers, then sermons, then warnings passed down to children. And so the story of Kato and the spirit became legend, that the rich must never strike the poor, that the strong must never abuse the weak. For sometimes the ones you think powerless are not of this world, and sometimes, when the cart rattles in the night, it is already too late. Thank you for watching City Stories, where every tale inspires, teaches, and entertains. If you enjoy this story, don't leave without hitting subscribe and turning on the bell, so you never miss the next one. Share it with friends, and let's keep growing a community built on the power of stories.